Hello, my friends. My name is Jack Ducard, and this is Sentinel Circle. Thank you for being here today. Let's go ahead and transition. This is going to be this week because of how things are going. We're just going to have the article final thoughts again. It's unfortunate, but I'm under a tight schedule today. I don't have a lot of time to do whatever, so sorry. Anyways, this video topic today is nursing homes may start sedating your elderly parents and eventually you because they don't have enough workers. And I saw this coming. I really did. I hate to say that. I don't like to be the one that says, well, I told you so. But this isn't good. Anyways, it says here, staffing levels significantly impact the use of antipsychotic medication, new research has found. About 24,000 additional nursing home residents will be sedated just to keep them under control as a result of the defeat of the Biden administration staffing mandate, new research says. The chances of your parents or grandparents being subjected to so-called chemical restraint by nursing home staff is about 10% higher than it would have been if the staffing mandate had survived, according to the analysis just published by the Pension Research Council at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business. So, I disagree here. I disagree that staffing mandates would have prevented this. This was happening regardless. It's easier to manage a nursing home with heavily sedated patients, especially the more Alzheimer's takes hold. Because as you know, Alzheimer's and dementia sufferers, they tend to be more violent because they get confused and can't handle what's going on. And the worse the problem's gotten, the worse the reaction is. So I think that this is just an inevitability. It doesn't matter if there was one person in each nursing home or 1,000. It's going to happen. And the other thing too is because the pay is so low and the support is just not there, even if this mandate existed, where are you going to find the people? You're going to have to lower the standards, which means your parents' care and eventually your care is going to get worse and worse. This was based on a detailed analysis of staffing levels and sedative use across America's 16,000 nursing homes between 2012 and 2021. Researchers Jong Myong Lim, Ken Moon, and Mijing Park, so a bunch of Orientals, obtain regulatory data on antipsychotic use, staffing levels, and other information about nursing homes from the federal government's Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services through Freedom of Information Act requests or FOIA requests. Our analysis consistently find that staffing levels significantly impact nursing homes' antipsychotic medication use. They report. We find that the increasing in nursing homes' nurse staff hours per resident day, or HPRD, decreases its use of antipsychotics by 6.39 residents on average, even after controlling for resident zip code and nursing home characteristics. So what they're saying, and again, I don't fully believe it, but what they're saying is the use is less when there's more people at the center, because that's the only way to increase nurse staff hours per resident is by having more people there. As they explain, patients placed under chemical restraints require less work. And again, that's why I think it doesn't matter. By reducing workloads rather than fulfilling them, nursing homes can hire fewer nurse staff while utilizing antipsychotic medications to still manage their patient load. And that's what it boils down to is if the mandate had gone through, there would be more nurses, but who's to say that they won't just sedate you? just to make you easier to control. Just because they got nurses there, that doesn't mean, and obviously the study shows that, they don't feel it's needed, but a lot of these nursing homes are privately run. Like, when they start realizing that they can get away with a lot more by doing that, who's to say that they won't do that? As they explain, patients placed under chemical I already read that. I'm sorry. They find that nursing homes run for profit are more likely to resort to such chemical restraints to control residents. Right there. It's the public ones. Those are because there's more regulations involved. Those are the ones that won't do it because they don't want to fill out the paperwork. God Christ, my nose. Co-author Ken Moon, a professor at Cornell's S.C. Johnson College of Business, says the true figure may end up being even higher than 24,000. That's because of the Trump administration's nationwide purge of immigrants without legal status, which is making it even harder for nursing homes to find staff. The nursing home industry has also complained about this. So I'm not going to touch the whole immigrants working at nursing homes with a 10-foot pole. I'm not going to do that. I find it disgusting and disgraceful that these places are hiring illegal immigrants. Simply because I firmly believe that sorry, didn't mean to hit my mic. If you come here, you need to come here legally. It's a requirement everywhere else in the world. Why not the United States? But again, I'm not going to touch it. We're supposed to transcend politics. Okay. That's my personal belief. That is not the belief of Sentinel Circle. We are open to all men, legal, illegal, whatever. The only exception to that rule is those who victimize, someone, specifically in a sexual way. I do not tolerate that. Sentinel Circle does not tolerate that. Chomos are not welcome. Any kind of deviant or predator is not welcome because we have victims here and we support victims here. Okay? Those are the only people that I make the exception for, is they are not allowed in. So, that being stated, the staff, has also complained about this. Previous studies have also shown a correlation between higher staffing levels, better care, and less abuse of sedatives or chemical restraints in nursing homes. However, this is the first to look specifically at the possible impact of the staffing mandates pushed by the Biden administration. The staffing mandates, which were proposed by the Biden administration in 2024, would have set minimum levels of nursing staff per resident, which I'm shocked that there isn't a requirement there. But I digress. They were defeated earlier this year as a result of a concentrated campaign by the nursing home industry and its political allies. The rules were blocked by the courts in April and seemingly killed for good by the Trump administration's One Big Beautiful Bill, which was passed by Republican majorities in both houses of Congress, which the president signed into law earlier this month. The law imposed a moratorium on the rules until 2034. Fine, whatever. Okay. I'm not going to go into the staffing. I think that there should be, because you have to have ratios everywhere else. Why is the nursing home industry any different? It just seems like we really just lose care when it comes to the elderly, but I digress. There are inevitable caveats. Nursing homes are still subject to various regulations at the federal and state level. How well facilities are monitored and regulations enforced is a subject for debate, and that's probably they aren't enforced at all, or very little, because even the enforcement doesn't have the manpower to enforce it. Nobody has manpower yet. We got all these unemployed people. How does that work? Let's ask those questions. We have so many people losing jobs left, right, and center, but we don't have programs to retrain, and we don't have programs to recruit into the industries that need it most. We have all these jobs, but nobody wants to do them because of various reasons. I wonder why. It's just, I look, I don't mean to derail the video, but like, let's really talk about these problems as adults here. We just sit there and say, oh, there's nothing we can do, nothing we can do, nothing we can do. Like, there's all these solutions out there, all these problems that we can fix. Nothing we can do, nothing we can do. I mean, I work a very good job, but like, if push came to shove, and look, I'm not saying that these jobs are good. I'm really not, because like, taking care of someone is probably one of the hardest things a person can do. And I celebrate people who do it on a daily basis. But here's the thing is, not everybody can be a firefighter. Not everybody can be a cop. Not everybody can be a nurse. I, for one, know for a fact I can't be a nurse. I can't do it. The smells make me sick. Every time I go into a hospital, I clam up and I can't handle it. I have this very, it's an illogical fear, but it's still a fear of hospitals, because like, people who go to a hospital, yeah, they're already sick. I get that. But you get some really nasty diseases from hospitals. Hospitals to me are always associated with death and violence and stuff like that. Like, I dread every single time I got to go to a hospital. I dread it. Doctor's offices I can handle, but hospitals, no, I'm good. To see the scarring, to see the external fixators, all that stuff, I can't do it. Anyways, the Biden staffing mandate couldn't wave a magic wand. Nursing home operators complained that they already couldn't find enough staffing at prevailing wages, and that many of them couldn't afford the extra workers required, and they warned that some nursing homes would simply close down instead, which, yeah, that's the nature of the beast, unfortunately. I know I'm trying my hardest not to itch my nose. I'm sorry. It's driving me nuts right now. The 24,000 figure comes from applying the theoretical staffing levels to nursing homes' 2019 occupancy levels. Obviously, this involves projections and estimates. In the email stated, Holly Harmon of the Nursing Home Industries Trade Association, AHCA-NCAL, said, our providers are committed to strengthening the long-term care workforce, but they need meaningful support. The industry, she added, urges policymakers to support its Better Way policy priorities, I guess it's going to go into that. Alas, one of those includes protecting Medicaid, the main financial supporter for America's nursing homes, from cuts. The Republican mega bill signed into law by President Donald Trump earlier this month includes deep cuts to federal Medicaid spending, more than $1 trillion over 10 years, according to the CBO, Congressional Budget Office. Which I will say that when I shouldn't say I was the one that did it, but my father, when he put his mother into a retirement home, basically the way that it was designed was all that Medicaid and Social Security money on all that stuff, that went to them. She got a little allowance from them to go get her hair done or whatever. That was it. But basically they took everything. And I will admit that, a lot of people probably are going to fall into that situation where the Medicaid is going to be what supports that. And if there's cuts to Medicaid, obviously it affects your level of care at the nursing home, because all that money, it's not just you, it's everybody in there is more than likely getting it paid for from Medicaid. And the fact that your whole industry is dependent on that is a little horrifying, but what's the alternative? I don't know. A lot of people seem to ignore the logistics when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I'm officially out of coffee. That's sad. So let's continue on. It's long been known that some or many understaffed nursing homes have resorted to use of antipsychotic medications, typically meaning sedatives and tranquilizers to make up for a shortage of staff. A U.S. Senate subcommittee reported as long ago as 1975 on this abuse of medications as a way to keep residents docile and easy to manage. A recent study suggested that nearly one resident in 4 is being medicated in this way. Some nursing home operators have responded to increased oversight by exploiting regulatory loopholes, critics also argue. This includes diagnosing more residents with conditions such as schizophrenia, where the use of antipsychotics draw less scrutiny, they said. But look on the bright side. Based on the evidence of recent decades included during the pandemic, hardly anybody outside of a nursing home really cares what happens to the people inside. They figure it won't happen to them anyway. It'll only happen to other people. Of course it will. That's kind of the reason why I'm bringing this up. That last sentence brought this up. So I'm going to transition to my handsome face here. So what did we learn? This is kind of what I'm getting at, is there's no retirement. This is your retirement right here. We sit there and say, well, work your hardest so that way you can retire early. Well, no, that's not retirement. Retirement is what happens when you're beyond your, because a lot of people focus on the retirement part as like that time where they still have their faculties. That's not how that works. There's going to be a point where you're so old that you can't take care of yourself. I mean, granted, if you're lucky enough, your life will end before that point. But like I said, in the case of my grandmother, not grandfather, but grandmother, that didn't happen. And I saw what was going on with the dementia, because she did have dementia. And it came about after a cancer situation. It seemed like the cancer treatment is what was the final nail in the coffin to really push her deep into the dementia. And then, my father put her into a home, and I will say that, it's nice that they have people they can talk to and all that stuff, but I don't want to live in a place like that. Yeah, you're fed. Yeah, you have a place to sleep. You don't really have to worry about those things, but let's be honest here. Those are prisons. Those are prisons with a different coat of paint. That's really what it is. A lot of people think that a prison is this place where there's bars on the windows and, no, that's an extreme view of prison. But a lot of places, what a prison is something that you just can't get out of, and that you can't get out of it. And I'm not sitting there saying that it's like, we couldn't take care of my grandmother. That's the honest to God truth, okay? But I guess what it boils down to is, I have to get a sip of water because I'm dying of thirst right now. Give me a second. What it boils down to is, becoming old is probably one of the things that everybody's going to do. Nobody wants to do it, but the question then becomes, okay, so how do you handle it? So Canada, they have the euthanasia program, which, I think about it and I think, oh my God, that's so horrible. But I think in a situation where, my grandmother was either facing, that or, the prison, and I'm not talking about prison as in the retirement home, but I'm talking about prison as in the prison of the mind. I would probably imagine there would be a point where she said, I've had enough. Let's just end this peacefully and quietly. But I don't know. I don't want to encourage that because I don't think that that's the right answer. But the article basically pointed it out in plain English. We're all going to go through this. You know, is that how you want to live the rest of your life? In some retirement home, sedated to the point where you can barely function, just to make the lives of the retirement carers easier? I don't know. I don't know about you guys. I personally would not want to be in that point. You know, and I'm in my mid-30s now, and you know, the retirement age is what, 65? And my grandmother got dementia, she was in her 70s. So like I'd have about maybe 5 years. You know, or you know, I'm told that retirement age goes up to 68 by the time I'm supposed to retire. So I got 3 years. I don't know if I want to live that way. All of you guys, you know, and I know like there are older guys that watch this. You got to ask yourself, is that what you want? I know it's a very dour subject, and the point that I'm trying to make is we're at a point now where it's becoming viable. You know, who's to say that as soon as you wake up, they start sedating you? You know, who's to say that you're just going to be sedated all day long? You're drugged out the entire time, you know, just sitting in your chair, watching your TV. You know, they bring you a little bit of lunch here and there, and that's your life. You just watch TV and you rot. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, and I think we all have to have a moment where we sit down and we think about this. And I don't mean... Don't go around thinking it's not going to happen to you. Operate under the assumption it's going to happen to you. And ask yourself, is that where you want to go? I know for a fact that's not where I want to go. I'm not saying that I'm going to end it or anything. My hope is there would be a solution by the time I get to that age. But as of right now, I don't know. I mean, it's just like, I think about that. Is that the inevitability? You know, this is what I got going on in the background. Like, you know, I spend money on things and just to realize that it's going to become trash because like my relatives are not going to want to deal with it, or some guy who's paid to clean up my apartment because, you know, I can't be able to do it on my own. And, you know, I get like a little room this big. My bed's going to be in the corner and that's it. I didn't realize this video was going to be this dour. I'm sorry. This was bad. But I hope everybody realizes where this is going. You know, and I'm going to harp on the retirement thing more because there is no such thing as retirement. This is kind of our future. We're going to work until we get to this point, and then that's our inevitability. Assuming they don't put us into pods and suffocate us like they do in Canada. Anyways, hopefully, well, I can't say hopefully you enjoy that video. I hope you didn't enjoy that video, but if you enjoy my content, let's put it that way, please like and subscribe, and be sure to send it to those who may need help, and we'll get through this. All right, have a good day. Bye.